There comes a moment when the pressure becomes unbearable. Not because something huge happens, but because you realize you've been holding your breath for years. You wake up every morning and perform. You speak, smile, and move like you're supposed to. You follow the rules. You meet the expectations. And yet something inside you begins to whisper, "This isn't it." You feel heavy, but can't explain why. You have everything you thought you needed, and still feel empty. You laugh, but it echoes strangely in your chest. You scroll, search, try to escape. But wherever you go, you're still there. Most people assume this is self-hatred, that they're lazy, broken, unmotivated. But that's a lie too. The real reason you feel this way is not because something is wrong with you. It's because something is wrong with the life you've been forced to live. Since childhood, you've been taught to fit in, to obey before you even understand the rules, to silence your instincts in the name of being a good person, to suppress your truth in order to be loved. You learned to ignore the pull in your chest. You buried the voice that said, "This doesn't feel right." And now, that voice is buried so deep, you've forgotten how to hear it. There's a quiet misery that creeps in when you live a life that doesn't belong to you. And what's terrifying is that, on the surface, everything looks fine. You're working, you're smiling, you're functioning. But deep inside, you feel like a stranger in your own skin. Here's how you know something is off. You wake up feeling drained, even after a full night's sleep. You dread the day ahead, not because of one big thing, but because none of it feels real. You talk to people, but the words feel rehearsed. You laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You agree to things that feel wrong. You avoid silence because it's too loud with questions you can't answer. You try to fill the emptiness with food, noise, scrolling, people, but it never lasts. It never reaches the part of you that's starving. You start feeling like you're broken, like something in you is flawed. But the truth is simpler and more painful. You're just not living your truth. The life you've built is one you were taught to want, not one you actually chose. And that's why it doesn't fit, no matter how tightly you try to hold it together. So the next time you feel numb, ask yourself, is this who I really am? Or just who I was trained to be? You can live for years in a life you never truly chose. You may be successful, polite, adaptable, and still a stranger to yourself. You've learned to be likable, to be needed, to be convenient. You created a persona that earns approval, but it never included your true self. You've played a role for so long, you forgot how it all began. Sometimes you smile while feeling completely hollow inside. Sometimes you agree while silently wanting to scream. You make decisions not based on desire, but on fear of being rejected. You confuse love with validation. You confuse peace with the mere absence of conflict, but somewhere deep inside, the person you used to be is still alive. That voice never really goes silent. It whispers at night when you're alone. It awakens when you're too tired to keep pretending. It stirs inside when you see someone living freely. And something aches. Because that's what you once wanted too. But you never allowed yourself to live it. You became the result of expectations. You became layers of defense, not a whole person. And now, removing the mask terrifies you because you're not sure who's underneath it. But here's the truth. The mask never protected you from pain. It only kept healing out of reach. And the most frightening part isn't that you've lived a lie. It's that you almost believed no other life was possible. You don't need a full transformation. You just need to start listening. Not to the world, but to the parts of you that you've been ignoring. Ask yourself the question you've been avoiding. What do I actually want? Not what's smart, not what's safe, not what makes sense to others, but what makes you feel even a little more alive. Do one small thing today, for no other reason than because it's yours. Read a page of that book you abandoned. Take a walk without a purpose. Pick up a brush, a pen, a guitar, anything that once made you feel real. You don't need permission to return to yourself. But if you're still waiting, this is it. Buy the coffee mug that feels like you. Play the music that reminds you who you were. Go to that place you've always wanted to see, even if it's only in your town. Say no to something you've been forcing for months. Say yes to something you've never allowed yourself to do. You're not a machine. You're not here to just survive. You're here to remember. There comes a moment when pretending becomes unbearable. You wake up and realize something's missing. Not something external, but something essential. You followed the rules, played the part, but the part never truly fit you. You start hearing it. A quiet pull, a whisper that says, go back inward. Not because life is broken, but because something inside wants to be heard. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about finally meeting who you've always been. That part of you that remembers joy, that remembers curiosity, stillness, and wonder. You don't need to destroy everything first. You don't need a dramatic reinvention. But you must begin telling the truth to yourself above all else. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stopped pretending for just one day? Would I speak differently? Would I move slower? Breathe deeper? Would I finally rest without guilt? Maybe you'd say no to something you hate. Maybe you'd say yes to something forgotten. Maybe you'd turn off the noise and walk for no reason, just to feel. Choose one thing today that feels like you. Not for applause, not for proof, just because it stirs something real inside you. When you start choosing yourself, consistently, quietly, and without shame, the world begins to respond differently. Doors you never saw begin to open. People notice something has shifted in you. New opportunities appear without being chased. This isn't magic, it's alignment. It's what happens when you stop betraying yourself, You stop begging for space, and you start becoming the space. You no longer ask permission to exist. You simply live, and that becomes your message. Your power returns, not in one grand moment, but in dozens of tiny choices each day. When you remember who you are, you stop asking the world to define you. You stop chasing the light, because you realize it's been in you all along. So take that first small step today, even if it feels uncertain or strange, even if it feels too late or too slow. Because once you begin choosing yourself, life begins choosing you back. In surprising ways, the right people arrive, the energy shifts, the path opens, not outside you, but within.